Hello, I'm Laura Bear. Welcome back if you've been a longtime subscriber, and thank you for that. I've started this channel with high ambitions and expectations to put out weekly episodes, and life can be lifey, and that's exactly what happened. So today I'd like to reconvene, and also I feel led to share what happened to me in case anyone derives any help from this or any comfort from this, any advice from what I've been through. I've wanted to start a YouTube channel for quite a while now. Last year I launched, I've got someone helping me. Something happened with him as well, something crazy, right? And crazy things happen. And, this channel is not paying my bills. I hope one day that it helps, but I have to work every day and earn an income. And my husband is the primary supporter of our family. Last year I had a 3-year-old and 18 that turned 19-year-old. And so they're now 2 and 4 and 19 as of today. I had gotten myself what I thought was a lot of support. And then the 6 days rolled in and life happened. And then something just really crazy happened. And so it's like, it feels almost like a bad thing happened to me. There can be things that make you want to feel like shame or embarrassment about something, but I don't know how I would have handled it differently, maybe with a little bit more eloquence than I did. But I think still that I didn't handle it horribly. So you can probably see from the title of the video, I had an experience with Child Protective Services. Now, an extremely loving mother. I don't put my kids out there. I don't want to. Other people have tagged me in posts or whatever, and I don't even think I've done that. Like, I may have done that with my son a long time ago as social media has changed, and as I've grown up and seen there are more evil people and creeps out there that my mom tried to warn me about, and I thought she was being over dramatic, but I do think there are a lot out there. I'm just protective, but I love my children. I love children in general. Typically, when I want to donate to something extra, I love giving to orphanages. I really care about that. And I also got pregnant at the age of 20. I thought I might give my son up for adoption at the time. This is all things he knows. And now that he's an adult, I don't mind talking about. But I've known struggles from all different sides and bad things. I experienced something very tragic at the age of 18 that involved another child. My roommate was babysitting the child. I came home and there are 2 children at my house because they're being babysat by my roommate. And something bad happened. And so this happening to me actually stirred up, and I think it helped me heal from what bad things and whatever like weird guilt I carried because of that. So I'll get into more of that maybe at the end of the video. And if you don't want to hear about things like that, then I would say just stop listening once I tell this story. But my children went to a school, a daycare, for 1.5 years. So my 4-year-old started just over the age of 2. Prior to that, she'd had a nanny. And then my youngest child had started at the age of 5 months. Now, I nursed the entire time. And so when we started, that was a bit of an issue because of bottles and training and all that. So I would go and sit in the parking lot and do a couple hours of work. And when I started at the school, there were really wonderful people here. I'm getting into this for a reason, right? And that all changed. People kept quitting and turnover. And it got to a point where I was seeing some things I didn't like, but there were still some good things that I liked there. And having 2 children and wanting to drop them off in the same location, is important. And it's not easy to come by. And also somewhere where you feel comfortable with your kids going to. There were other schools we looked into, where to get a 3-year-old in, you needed to register or get on the waiting list when you're pregnant. Like, it can be ridiculous. And I know there are other parents out there. I know I dealt with similar things with my son. And there was a short period of time where I was taking him to a daycare that I just hated when he was little. And then there were a number of others that were just incredibly amazing, wonderful people. Things had shifted at the school they were going to, and I was just kind of waiting it out. I was seeing red flags or concerning things, but I was just trying to wait and see. And my youngest had moved up, and so in her baby room, the two head teachers there were incredible. There was one teacher that had been there that we had one bad day at, really bad day. But other than that, like, things were great. But I could see the room she was moving up to was a very young teacher. She couldn't have had a lot of experience because of her age. And what I had witnessed was when you walk into the school, there's a foyer area. And so the administrative people are often behind this big foyer desk. There were a couple times I walked in and this particular teacher was standing up there and talking to the administrative people, and I could just tell it was very dramatic. So that just rubbed me the wrong way. I didn't eavesdrop. I don't really know what was being said, but I could just tell, like, this is a very dramatic person. And that could be good in a positive sense, but this didn't feel like a positive sense. So anyway, my youngest is moving up to this class, and I just keep my opinions to myself. So only my husband knows how my concern about that. And so after the first day, when we got home, the worst diaper rash I've ever seen. Now, my youngest is sensitive. There's been eczema, all of that. And I have sensitive wipes. And so the next day, I'm planning to address it. This teacher is in this rec room with other teachers, and there's parents in there dropping off. There's a variety of ages of kids. And so I walk in straight to her to talk about, and I don't know who did all the diaper changing day one of the new class. And so looking to address it and say, hey, listen, we have this horrible diaper rash, the worst I've ever seen. We need to make sure these sensitive wipes are used. We can't use other wipes and so forth. And it went really wrong. And I said, it's as if the skin has been ripped, like it's been wiped so hard. And it was not well received. It was received extremely defensively. And then there was another mom who had an aged child in this class who had been in here longer, that was older than mine, and then another child that was in my middle child's class. So I asked her, if she'd had any issues, and she didn't. And that turned out to be a bad interaction too, because later I get an email, and again, I use the word rip, but this is, imagine like a basketball gym area. Like, it's loud, there's kids screaming. This person thought I used a different word. They thought I used the word smacked instead of ripped in regards to what I was referring to. And so I get an email saying how inappropriate I was and that I should schedule like a private meeting to have this discussion. And so I see like a point in that. Now, I also know people behavior, right? Like, I deal with selling houses, and emotions come up a lot always. And so to try to make this experience better, I say, you're right, let's schedule a meeting. And so with the administrative and this teacher, I come in early before pickup, and I say, listen, I'm sorry, you're right. Like, I don't think anybody had any ill intents or did this on purpose. I don't know if it was you or somebody else, because I don't think you're the only one doing the diaper changes. And so I tried to smooth it over, and I did apologize, because I'm like, yeah, sure, I can see you want me to have this conversation in private, and I don't think it was as public as this person made it out to be. But again, drama, and other parents that I've talked to are like, I would have done the exact same thing. So, you can see it either way. But I'm like, I don't want any issues with a teacher. So we went on, and we continued to have these issues on and off for 6 months. And so my child moved up to this class at 14 months old, maybe a little over 14 months. And this would be a reoccurring thing that happened. And in June or July, we had a meeting that included people from the district, because this is a franchise, or it's some sort of there's multiple locations. And so there's people that are above the head administrative staff. And that person didn't even know the age of my child because they were talking about potty training. I'm like, we do intend to potty train early, but we weren't even 18 months old yet. This head teacher was out for a week sometime between that meeting and September. And we had no issues that week. But typically, there were sometimes we raised issues, but at the same time, every week, there would be a lot of redness on Friday. There would be healing that took place over the weekend, and then it would start all over. And so I also often was taken off like a Wednesday, Thursday to try to give healing and everything to this, and, to spend time with my children too. And so there was an issue again that happened that was pretty bad. And my husband sent an email and said, if this continues, like, we're going to pull out of the school. We can't deal with this anymore. And after that happened, that was either end of August, early September. So I said, we're just going to schedule the potty training. Like, I know we need 4 days. I need to put pads everywhere and have paper towels and cleaner spray and all that. So I'm like, I'm just going to take off. We're going to do it over this weekend. We're going to schedule it. And I'd already had prior conversations with the teacher about not doing diapers. We'd just bring lots of shorts, pants, underwear, all that stuff when we do this. So that was already agreed upon. So that Monday, that's what we do. And also I want to say my youngest only ever nurse. With the 2 older ones, I did formula at points, but with this one, I was like really proud that I was able to accomplish that. I was working. If you're a mom and ever dealt with that, it's a lot, and good job on any bit of nursing you've been able to do. That led to, I think, that my child would bite me a lot, and she pulled her sister's hair. So this is important for later on in the story. So September, I can't remember if it was the 21st or the 29th, 27th, I had the date. So I do know on October 21st, I get a call, and this person says their name, and they're with Child Protective Services, and it's regarding my name and my child's name. I mean, I never dreamed or imagined I would get a call like this. And so immediately I'm like, what did you say? I answer the phone, and then she repeats it. And then I have an iPhone. I start my call recording, which announces this call is being recorded. And she says, you can't record this call. I'm like, okay. So I stopped the call recording. And of course it tells her the recording is stopped. And I said, can I go get my husband? And she's like, yes, you can. And we put her on speakerphone, and we took diligent notes and asked her to repeat things. And so the call was made the day that we came back on a Monday after the potty training. And it was said that I bent down to my youngest child and said, do you want spankings or hugs or kisses? I can't remember. Again, I have all this written down. It's not with me right now. And then that, later on about that the child flinched after they wet themselves and cried about it. And then my 20-month-old supposedly said an entire long sentence about, yes, my mommy spanks me a lot. And it was said like there were no marks or bruises, but then there were marks. The whole report was contradictory. So I got this call October 21st, which is the day before my husband's birthday. And also 2 years prior on the same day, my middle child had a horrible fever seizure, but it was very intense. We rode the ambulance to CHOP. Luckily, we have CHOP nearby, Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, which is great. They do a great job. And so it was just a weird day. Now, at the same time, I'm on with the lady from Child Protective Services. The school is calling me. It's like the end of the day, like 4:00, and saying that my youngest child, they think has hand, foot, and mouth disease, which we had just had that a month prior. So last year, there were also weeks where with the 2 children, we winded up with 3 sicknesses. Like one had 2 different sicknesses, or they got the same one and something else. And we had just had that. And I didn't know. I thought it was like chicken pox, that you get it once and never get it again. turns out that was the case. We had it. So I go to the school. I don't say anything. I try to act like I normally do. I don't know if I did or not. I don't know if they get any kind of notice, but this teacher and like a bunch of staff were at the front when I came in, which that could also be a normal day because this teacher would leave a little early. And so I didn't even get their stuff. Like, there's extra clothes and stuff at the school. I just got the normal stuff, acted friendly, and left. My husband called the next day and addressed it and just said, like, I think you should have reached out to us. This should have been a conversation. And the reaction was very defensive and of their teachers, and they're allowed to call. Anytime they sense or think anything, they are allowed to call. And he's like, yes, but my 20-month-old didn't say this. If that happened, like, that's genius level to speak a sentence and whatever. So one day I'm working and the next day I'm a stay-at-home mom again. And so then we're just kind of like feeling very burned by this scenario. And we're discussing, like, I don't think I would have done anything differently. I wouldn't have pulled them out of school before this happened because there were positive and there were negative things. My middle child had 5 teachers in like the last 6 months, and drop-offs were very difficult because of that, because of the no bonding or leaving with a teacher they don't like or whatever. So then another probably week and a half goes by and we get another call from the same CPS person. And I go and find my husband. The kids are at home being loud in the background, so it's made it more difficult to have this conversation. But now they've called again and made another report. And this time they're saying there's more bruises and stuff that they've seen, and that I was dragging the other child in the hallway. I can't remember what else. I do have this written down, but again, it's not with me. And this has happened about 6 months ago. And so now that there's 2 reports, which teachers are educated about this kind of thing. Now that there are 2 reports, there's a mandatory home visit. In the meantime, I just kept having a bad feeling. And when the first incident happened, I told my husband, reach out to your attorney friend. And I'm like, I think you should go ahead and reach out. He didn't, but I just kept bugging him. And I think he had like a conversation like, oh yeah, you can tell them, like, you can have an attorney or whatever. And so like we knew enough to say when they said that now we have to come to your house. Also, the second call, the person said, I said, they're not in school anymore. And I said, they haven't been back since I spoke to you, which the CPS workers seemed shocked by that or surprised by that. And then she says to me, well, they have to be in school. I'm like, no, my 1 and 3-year-old don't have to be in school. So I don't know if she got confused about the ages of the child she's currently calling on, or if she's lying on purpose, because after all this, I dug in and did a ton of research, and people will say these caseworkers will lie. So I don't know if that was purposely done or accidentally done, but in also preparing for this visit, it did not give me any peace. I can see like these 2 teachers have lied. Now this person's lied to me. And now this person's coming to my house to judge me on being a mom. And so we did wind up, the attorney that is my husband's buddy, he said he could do it, but he's got other attorney friends that are acquaintances that like they primarily do this. And I think he could tell, I had a conversation with him. I think he could tell about how emotionally charged I was over all this. And so he's like, look, I think you should just get one of these other colleagues to handle this. And I wound up talking to 2 of them and picking one, so that somebody's coming into my house to judge me. Like, I want someone else there that is familiar with these kind of things and is on our side, essentially. Like, we're paying them. And so it was not a cheap expense, but it was for, I would say, we're upper middle class, middle class, like it's an expense that's certainly worth it, right? Like, even if I didn't have a lot of money, I would probably find the money somewhere to do this if I was in this situation. Like, I've not always had as much as I do today. And so I would, even back then, I would have found it. Okay. That's how I feel about something like this happening. I went a little ballistic with the preparation, and knowing what I know now, I was told they want to see that you have running water in the house. The children are going to be there. They're going to be a little bit careful about what they say, but they want to see arms and legs and, et cetera. But I made sure there was a plastic plug in every electric outlet. I had the house cleaned and organized extra. I had landscaping done outside. I mean, because I'm like, you could walk around and pick apart anything. And so I'm just like, I want to have every precaution that somebody can't pick out something to criticize me on. This, how I felt. And again, if this happened all over again, I don't know that I would have felt any differently. And maybe just staying busy and doing extra things kind of helped me handle the emotions and the trauma that this brought up. And so the caseworker was there, and we sat down, had a conversation at the table. The kids are there, one sit in my lap. We show, we talk, and then the caseworker wants to see their rooms. As we're walking upstairs, the caseworker says, I can see the 21-month-old now, didn't say this whole entire sentence. So a sigh of relief finally, because it was, even answering the door was awkward, because it's like, this person's all business. And normally I like hosting people, and it's like, welcome to my home. Can I get you something to drink? So it was very awkward. But then, that made me feel good. And then at the end of looking at the rooms, turning on the water, all that, the caseworker says, this case is going to be closed, and I will send you an email and a letter within an hour and a half, letting you know. And, this official proof. And if another call comes in, it'll come to me, because I'm your assigned caseworker. So I felt relief. But until I get this letter, I don't feel, completely relieved. I'm still kind of holding my breath. And then it downpours outside after the caseworker left. And so I didn't get the letter that day. And it was almost 24 hours later that I got the letter. And once I received that, I felt that relief. But I still felt a lot of anxiety over what happened. And it brought up this trauma that I'm going to mention now. So I was 18, I was in college, and I was waiting tables at a franchise restaurant. And my roommate worked with me, and she was not in college. She just worked this job full time. I worked a lot of hours. We lived in duplexes, and down the street from us were this couple. The lady had a 6-year-old and a 14-month-old. And this couple, they had been in a previous relationship. They had worked, I had been there almost a year at this point at this job. So they were in a relationship with other people. They moved to Arkansas to be with each other, all of a sudden. And then they had just moved back. And so I got home, and the 6-year-old is sleeping on our nice couch. What is it? A futon that will fold up. So it had a thick pad on it, almost a mattress. And the baby, I think, was asleep when I first got home, but then he was awake. So he was 14 months old. And there were other people over there, one of the other bartenders that was best friends with my roommate was there. There might have been somebody else at our house. I know her mom had been there previously, but I can't remember. I think her mom had left before I got home. And so this 14-month-old little boy is super happy and sweet. And I'm holding him, and he's he's just smiling. He's a little chunky. And he, normally 14 months old can walk, or they're trying, or they're standing good. And so I'm trying to get him to stand, and he won't. He would tuck his legs almost crisscross under him and kind of whimper when I try to get him to do that. But if he's just sitting in my lap, he was happy. And so the bartender friend, not my roommate, but the friend, said, oh, my nephew, niece, or some relative did that, and one of their legs, there was something broken or whatever. So we're okay, we need to tell the mom this. Okay, so then fast forward a little bit. The big sister that's sleeping on nice and comfortable on our couch is like the mom and the boyfriend are going to be home. And so I pick up the sister to take her home and carry her because it's like walking distance. They're in another duplex, like 4 doors down or something. And so I get down there. I think all these people are drinking and doing drugs. The mom went somewhere else to pick up milk for the baby, but the boyfriend's there with 2 other girls that we work with. And he says, oh, her bed's in there. Now, these duplexes were like concrete floor with Berber carpet glued down. There was no padding. It was a very hard floor. So he says, her bed's in there. And like the playpen's in there, and there's sheets on this hard floor. And I'm like, I walk back out. I'm still holding her the whole time because she's like very sleepy. And they're sitting on this like foam chair that Walmart used to sell, and it had like a round pillow. And then it folds out and it like is flat, almost like a twin bed, but not that big. So, and like he looks and sees like this girl is sitting on the chair, and they have like no furniture otherwise. So they would just sit on the floor. So I'm like, give me the chair. And so I put it out and I put her down, and then I walk home, and I feel horrible that I'm leaving her. Like I just moved her from our comfortable couch, and she was sleeping so great, to this space. And I don't know if my roommate told me this night or it was the next day, but the next day I get up, I go to college, I come back around lunchtime, go to my classes, come back, and there are like police cars and tape everywhere. And so the boyfriend had, I don't know the best way to say this on this platform, gotten rid of the younger one that I just held hours before. And we talked about like, oh, maybe something's wrong with the legs. Very tragically, the mom woke up. Now, I think she loved her kids, but who knows? He could have been giving her things to pass out. I don't know what goes through people's heads like this. But I know she lost her daughter for a while to Child Protective Services, lost the baby, rushed the baby to the hospital, but I think it was too late even when that happened. And my roommate had told me that 6-year-old had said she had slept before in the pack and play with her brother. So, I think I carry this trauma that's happening and questioning like, oh, like we should have said something about the legs and maybe that would have changed the outcome of what happened. Like, I'm again at 18, and this isn't something I didn't share with a lot of people. And so it just, all the trauma and the crying and the guilt of carrying this, I think that all this helped heal me and be able to talk about that again, or that just kind of surfacing, right? And knowing like just things and unjust things happen with CPS. And it seems like when you're familiar that you see the unjust things that could have been prevented, and then you see crazy things happening to somebody like me because of a vendetta of a teacher. So anyway, I again, this story is awkward and embarrassing to me in a way, but also healing to share. I'm a Christian, and I felt like God was tugging at my heart, like really pushing me to share it. And I've shared it with some individuals, short and long versions. And so that's why I'm putting it out there. I felt called to do it. I know this is awkward and weird, and this is normally a real estate YouTube channel, which it will be. But thank you for taking the time. I will say, when you watch a video all the way, when you like, when you subscribe, that helps. And I think when you comment, like, I'm not an expert, but if this has helped you in some way, or if you feel, I can't believe I didn't cry during this story, maybe it shows healing too, that I was able to get through it without crying. But if this has helped you in some way, or if you've just enjoyed listening to my story, even though it was a terrible story to happen, then, please do any of those things. I'm in real estate, so I love to help people with real estate. That's how I pay the bills. And so if I can ever help you or anyone please reach out. Please keep me in mind. Have a great day, and see you next time.